The wind cut through the empty parking lot like a knife that November evening. Jennifer Collins stood by the glass doors of Morrison's grocery, keys in hand, ready to lock up for the night. It had been one of those long, exhausting days where every customer seemed to have a complaint and every employee called in sick. She just wanted to go home, heat up some leftover pasta, and collapse on her couch. She was about to turn the key when something caught her eye. A figure was slumped against the brick wall near the shopping cart return, barely visible in the dim light. At first, she thought it might be garbage bags someone had left behind, but then the figure moved just slightly. Jennifer's heart jumped. She quickly walked over, her tired feet suddenly finding energy. As she got closer, she realized it was an elderly man, probably in his 70s, wearing nothing but a thin sweater and dress pants. His lips had a bluish tint, and he was shaking uncontrollably. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" she asked, kneeling beside him. The concrete was ice cold beneath her knees. The man's eyes fluttered open, but they seemed unfocused, lost. He mumbled something she couldn't understand. His skin felt like ice when she touched his hand. Jennifer didn't waste a second. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911, her fingers trembling as she explained the situation to the dispatcher. While she waited for the ambulance, she ran back inside the store and grabbed the emergency blanket from the first aid kit. She wrapped it around the old man's shoulders, trying to remember everything she'd learned in that CPR class she'd taken 3 years ago. "Help is coming," she kept saying, as much to reassure herself as him. "You're going to be okay." The ambulance arrived within 10 minutes, though it felt like an hour. The paramedics worked quickly, checking his vital signs and asking Jennifer questions. One of them, a woman with kind eyes, explained that the man was suffering from severe hypothermia and appeared to be confused or disoriented. "Does he have any identification?" the paramedic asked. Jennifer carefully checked his pockets and found a wallet, but there was barely anything in it. No driver's license, no insurance cards, just a few dollar bills and a faded photo of a young woman. The man kept trying to say something, but his words were slurred and made no sense. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, Jennifer noticed how thin he was, how his clothes hung loose on his frame. The paramedic mentioned they'd take him to County General, but expressed concern about him being released with nowhere to go and nothing warm to wear. That's when Jennifer made a decision that would change everything. "Wait here just 1 minute," she told the paramedics. She ran back into the store, her mind racing. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she knew it was against every rule in the company handbook. But looking at that frail old man on the stretcher, she couldn't just walk away. Jennifer grabbed a shopping basket and moved through the aisles quickly. A warm fleece jacket from the clearance rack, thermal underwear, thick socks, a knit hat and gloves. She added some protein bars, bottles of water, and a packaged sandwich from the deli section. Her hands were shaking as she rang everything up at her register. Then came the moment of truth. She pulled out the store's emergency credit card from the manager's office. This card was meant for business expenses only, things like emergency repairs or replacing broken equipment. Using it for anything else was strictly forbidden. She'd seen people get written up for less, but Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about her own father, who had passed away 2 years earlier. What if he had been alone somewhere, cold and confused, needing help? She'd want someone to break the rules for him. She swiped the card. The transaction went through. $247. Jennifer carefully documented everything, writing down each item and the reason for the purchase in the store log. She even printed out the receipt and attached a note explaining the emergency situation. Surely corporate would understand. This was a matter of life and death. She brought the bags out to the ambulance. The paramedics seemed surprised but grateful. They promised to make sure the man received everything. As the ambulance pulled away, red lights flashing in the darkness, Jennifer felt good about what she'd done. Tired, yes, but good. She finished locking up the store and drove home through the quiet streets. Her apartment was small and cluttered. Toys scattered across the living room floor from where her 2 kids had been playing before the babysitter put them to bed. She checked on both of them, pulling blankets up to their chins, and then finally allowed herself to relax. That night she slept soundly, not knowing that her act of kindness had been captured on multiple security cameras. Every move she'd made, from taking the emergency credit card to ringing up the items, had been recorded in crystal clear detail. The next morning started normally enough. Jennifer dropped her kids at school, grabbed a coffee from the drive-thru and headed to work. She arrived 15 minutes early, like always, and was surprised to find her district manager's car already in the parking lot. Richard Palmer rarely showed up before noon, and never without calling first. Her phone buzzed as she was getting out of her car. A text from her assistant manager. "Palmer wants to see you in the office immediately." Jennifer felt a small knot form in her stomach, but she pushed it away. Maybe he'd heard about what happened last night and wanted to thank her, or maybe there was an issue with inventory. She grabbed her purse and headed inside, waving to the early morning stock crew as she passed. Richard was sitting at her desk, his laptop open, his face unreadable. The store's security footage was paused on the screen, showing Jennifer at the register with the emergency credit card in her hand. "Jennifer, we need to talk," he said, and his tone made her blood run cold. "Have a seat." She sat down slowly, her coffee forgotten in her hand. The knot in her stomach had become a boulder. "I've been reviewing last night's security footage and financial records," Richard continued, his voice flat and professional. "There's been a serious violation of company policy." Jennifer's mouth went dry. She set her coffee cup down carefully on the desk, trying to keep her hand from shaking. "Richard, I can explain," she started, but he held up his hand to stop her. "I've seen the footage, Jennifer. I've reviewed the transaction logs. You used the company emergency credit card for unauthorized purchases totaling $247. He turned the laptop toward her, showing her own image frozen on the screen. "Do you deny this?" "No, I don't deny it, but if you just let me explain what happened." "The policy is very clear," Richard interrupted, pulling out a printed copy of the employee handbook. He'd already highlighted the relevant section in yellow. "Emergency company funds are to be used exclusively for business-related expenses. Equipment failure, facility damage, safety hazards. This is outlined in Section 4.2, which you signed off on when you became manager." Jennifer felt heat rising to her cheeks. "I know what the policy says, but there was a man dying in our parking lot. He was hypothermic. The paramedics said he had nowhere to go and nothing warm. What was I supposed to do? Just let him? You were supposed to call 911, which you did. That was appropriate. What wasn't appropriate was stealing company funds." The word stealing hit her like a slap. "I didn't steal anything. I documented every single item. I wrote a full explanation in the logbook. I even saved the receipt. This wasn't for personal use, Richard. This was saving someone's life." Richard leaned back in the chair, and for a moment his expression softened slightly. "Look, Jennifer, I understand you had good intentions. Nobody is questioning that. You're one of our best managers. Your store consistently hits its targets. Your team respects you, and you've never had a write-up in 6 years. Then why are we having this conversation?" Jennifer felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was just going to be a warning. Because corporate has already seen the footage. They flagged the unusual credit card transaction last night, and I got a call at 6 this morning. My hands are tied here. The hope died as quickly as it had sparked. "What are you saying?" Richard pulled out another piece of paper, this one official-looking with the company letterhead at the top. "I'm saying that I have to let you go. Effective immediately." "I'm sorry, Jennifer. I really am." The words didn't make sense at first. "Let you go. Fired." She stared at him, waiting for him to say he was joking, that this was some kind of mistake. But his face remained serious, almost sad. "You're firing me for helping someone." Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "I'm terminating your employment for violation of company policy regarding unauthorized use of company funds." That's how corporate is framing it. This is insane. Jennifer stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I saved that man's life. He could have died out there. And that was very noble of you. But you did it with company money without authorization. If every employee made these kinds of decisions on their own, we'd have chaos. There has to be accountability." Jennifer felt tears stinging her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not here, not in front of him. What about all the times this store has donated food that's about to expire? We give away hundreds of dollars worth of products every month to the food bank. How is this different?" "That's part of an authorized corporate program." "This wasn't. I know it seems unfair, but..." "It doesn't just seem unfair, Richard. It is unfair. I have 2 kids. I have rent due next week. I've given 6 years to this company. And this is how you treat me." Richard stood up and handed her the termination letter. "You'll receive 2 weeks of severance pay, and your unused vacation time will be paid out. You can apply for unemployment. I'll need your store keys, your employee badge, and your name tag. Jennifer's hands were shaking as she unclipped her name tag from her vest. Jennifer Collins, store manager. She'd been so proud when she'd gotten that promotion 3 years ago. She'd worked nights and weekends, covered for people, gone above and beyond. And now it was over because she'd helped someone. She placed her keys and badge on the desk with a sharp clatter. What about my things? My photos, my coffee mug? I'll have someone box them up and you can pick them up this afternoon. But I need you to leave the premises now. I'll walk you out. You're going to escort me out like a criminal? Jennifer couldn't believe this was happening. It's standard procedure for terminations. The walk through the store was the longest of Jennifer's life. The early morning crew stopped what they were doing to watch. Her assistant manager, Tom, looked shocked. The cashiers whispered to each other. Jennifer kept her head up, refusing to show how humiliated she felt, but inside she was crumbling. When they reached the door, Richard said quietly, "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. I just wish you'd called me first." Jennifer turned to look at him. "If I'd called you, what would you have said?" He was quiet for a moment, then looked away. "I would have told you no. Company policy. Exactly. And that man would have died." She pushed through the door and walked to her car. The drive home was a blur. Jennifer gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. She'd just lost her job. Her stable, decent-paying job that covered rent and groceries and her kids' school supplies. How was she going to explain this? How was she going to find another job? Who would hire a manager who'd been fired for misusing company funds even if the reason was good? She pulled into her apartment complex and sat in the car for a long time, staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Tom. "Everyone here thinks what happened is wrong. We're all behind you." Then another text from Lisa, one of the cashiers. "You're all over the break room group chat. Nobody can believe they fired you." Jennifer finally let the tears fall. She cried for the unfairness of it all, for the fear of not knowing how she'd pay her bills, for the embarrassment of being escorted out of her own store. But she also cried because she didn't regret it. Even knowing what would happen, she'd do it again. She wiped her eyes and went inside. The apartment was quiet and empty, her kids still at school for another few hours. She made herself a cup of tea with shaking hands and opened her laptop. Time to update her resume. Time to figure out how to explain this gap in employment. Time to start over. But as she stared at the blank document on her screen, all she could think about was that old man's blue lips and confused eyes. She'd lost everything for helping him, and somehow that still felt like the right choice. Jennifer woke up the next morning to her phone buzzing like crazy. At first she thought it was her alarm, but then she realized it was call after call coming in. She squinted at the screen, her eyes still heavy with sleep. Unknown number. Another unknown number. 3 missed calls already, and it wasn't even 7 in the morning. What the hell? She muttered, sitting up in bed. Her first thought was panic. Had something happened to her kids? But no, they were both asleep in their rooms. She'd checked on them twice during the night, unable to sleep after yesterday's disaster. She scrolled through her notifications and her heart nearly stopped. Her social media was exploding. Facebook, Instagram, even her barely used Twitter account had hundreds of notifications, comments, shares, messages from people she didn't even know. With trembling fingers, she opened Facebook and immediately saw what was happening. Tom, her assistant manager, had posted something on the Portland Community Forum the night before. The post had been shared over 3,000 times. "Our store manager was fired today for saving a man's life," the post began. Tom had written out the whole story, how Jennifer had found the elderly man, called 911, and bought him warm clothes and food with company money. He'd explained how she'd been terminated the next morning, escorted out like a criminal for showing basic human compassion. The comments were overwhelming. Hundreds of people calling Morrison's Grocery heartless, others sharing their own stories of corporate cruelty. People were posting photos of their Morrison's loyalty cards cut in half, vowing to never shop there again. Local news stations had commented on the post, asking to get in touch with Jennifer for interviews. Her phone rang again. This time she answered. "Is this Jennifer Collins?" a professional-sounding woman asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Amanda Price from Channel 7 News. We'd love to have you come in for an interview about what happened at Morrison's Grocery. Would you be available this afternoon?" Jennifer's head was spinning. I don't know. I need to think about it. Of course, take your time. Here's my direct number. We'd really love to tell your story. As soon as Jennifer hung up, the phone rang again. Another news station. Then another. A radio show wanted her to call in. A podcast host wanted to interview her. It was overwhelming and surreal and terrifying all at once. She made herself coffee with shaking hands and sat at her kitchen table, scrolling through the messages. Most were supportive, people calling her a hero, saying Morrisons should be ashamed, but there were also messages from job recruiters, local business owners offering her positions, and dozens of strangers wanting to send her money to help with bills. This is crazy, she whispered to herself. This is absolutely crazy. Her phone rang again, and this time the number showed up as unknown private. Something made her answer it. Ms. Collins? The voice was male, older, with a slight accent she couldn't quite place. My name is David Chen. I'm calling regarding the incident from 2 nights ago. The elderly man you helped. Jennifer's heart skipped. Is he okay? Did something happen to him? He's fine, thanks to you. That's actually why I'm calling. I'm his attorney, and I'd like to meet with you as soon as possible. Would you be available this morning? What is this about? I'd prefer to discuss it in person. It's important. I can come to you if that's more comfortable. Jennifer looked around her messy apartment, toys scattered everywhere, dishes piled in the sink. Can we meet somewhere public? There's a coffee shop on Morrison Street near the library. Perfect. I can be there in an hour. I'll be wearing a gray suit and carrying a brown leather briefcase. Ms. Collins, I want you to know that what you did was extraordinary. We're very grateful. After he hung up, Jennifer just sat there staring at her phone. Who was this man? Why did the elderly man have an attorney? And why did he want to meet with her? She quickly showered and got dressed, choosing a simple sweater and jeans. Her hands were still shaking as she applied minimal makeup. She checked on her kids, who were still sleeping. It was Saturday, thank goodness, so she didn't have to worry about getting them to school. Her neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had offered to watch them any time after hearing what happened. The coffee shop was busy when Jennifer arrived, full of the usual Saturday morning crowd. She ordered a latte and found a table in the corner, constantly checking the door. Her mind was racing with possibilities. Maybe the old man wanted to thank her, or maybe he was upset about something. Had she done something wrong medically? Right on time, a distinguished Asian man in his late 50s walked in, carrying a brown leather briefcase. He looked around, spotted Jennifer, and walked over with a warm smile. Ms. Collins, I'm David Chen. He extended his hand. Jennifer shook it, noticing how firm and confident his grip was. Please call me Jennifer. He sat down across from her, setting his briefcase carefully on the chair beside him. Thank you for meeting with me on such short notice. I know this must all seem very mysterious. That's putting it mildly. How did you even find me? The hospital had your name from the 911 call. When my client was lucid enough to explain what happened, I made some inquiries. That was before your story went viral online. Your client? The man I helped is your client? David nodded, his expression becoming more serious. His name is Robert Thornton. Does that name mean anything to you? Jennifer shook her head. Should it? Most people in Portland know the name. Robert Thornton is a philanthropist and businessman. He founded Thornton Industries about 40 years ago. The company is worth several $1 billion. Jennifer nearly choked on her coffee. Billion? With a B? With a B, David confirmed. Robert has been struggling with early-stage dementia for the past year. He lives in a specialized care facility with round-the-clock supervision. 2 nights ago, during a shift change, he managed to slip out unnoticed. We were searching for him for hours. We filed a police report, had people looking everywhere. Oh my God, Jennifer breathed. I had no idea. How could you? He wasn't carrying proper identification. The dementia makes him confused. If you hadn't found him, if you hadn't acted so quickly. David's voice caught slightly. The doctor said another hour in those temperatures and he might not have made it. Jennifer felt tears welling up. Is he okay now? Is he back at his facility? He is, and he's doing well, all things considered. But Jennifer, there's something else I need to tell you. Something that might change your perspective on everything that's happened. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Robert has a son. His name is Michael Thornton. He's the CEO of Thornton Industries now. When Michael heard what you did, and then what happened with your job, he paused. Well, he wants to meet you. Today, if possible. Jennifer stared at the folder David had placed on the table. Why does he want to meet me? David smiled. Because saving his father's life deserves more than just a thank you. 2 hours later, Jennifer found herself sitting in the back of David Chen's luxury sedan, heading toward the West Hills where Portland's wealthiest residents lived. She'd called Mrs. Patterson to watch the kids, thrown on her nicest outfit, a navy blazer she usually wore to parent-teacher conferences, and tried not to panic. I can't believe I'm doing this, she said, more to herself than to David. Michael is very down to earth, David assured her from the front passenger seat. Despite everything, he's maintained his father's values. You'll like him. The car turned onto a private road lined with massive oak trees. At the end sat a house that made Jennifer's jaw drop. It wasn't just a house. It was practically an estate. Modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows, surrounded by manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than her annual salary. This is where Robert lives? She asked. This is the family home. Robert is at a specialized care facility nearby, but Michael wanted to meet you here. He thought it would be more comfortable than his office downtown. Comfortable wasn't exactly the word Jennifer would have used. Terrified was more accurate. A man in his early 40s opened the door before they could knock. He was tall, with graying hair and kind eyes that immediately reminded Jennifer of his father. He was wearing jeans and a casual button-up shirt, not the expensive suit she'd been expecting. Jennifer, he said, extending his hand. I'm Michael. Thank you so much for coming. His handshake was warm and genuine. Some of Jennifer's nervousness eased slightly. Please come in. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Tea? Water would be great, Jennifer said, following him through an entryway that was bigger than her entire apartment. He led her to a comfortable sitting room with large windows overlooking the garden. David excused himself, saying he had some calls to make, leaving Jennifer alone with Michael. I'll get straight to the point, Michael said, sitting across from her. My father is the most important person in my life. When he went missing 2 nights ago, I thought I'd lost him. The police said at his age, with his condition in those temperatures. He paused, composing himself. They weren't optimistic. I'm so glad I was there, Jennifer said softly. You didn't just happen to be there. You stayed late. You noticed him when most people would have walked right past, and then you used your own judgment to help him, knowing it might cost you. Michael leaned forward. David told me what happened with your job. That's unconscionable. Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. I'm not looking for sympathy or, I know you're not, but you deserve more than sympathy. You deserve justice, and you deserve to be rewarded for your compassion, not punished for it. He pulled out an envelope from the coffee table and handed it to her. What's this? Jennifer asked, almost afraid to touch it. Open it. With trembling fingers, she opened the envelope. Inside was a check. Jennifer stared at the amount, certain she was reading it wrong. $50,000. I can't accept this, she said immediately, trying to hand it back. Yes, you can. Consider it a reward for saving my father's life. But this is too much. I didn't do it for money. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Michael smiled. Which is exactly why you deserve it. Jennifer, do you know how rare that is? In my position, I meet people every day who want something from me. Everyone has an angle. But you helped a confused old man in a parking lot with no idea who he was or what you might gain from it. That kind of integrity is priceless. Jennifer felt tears welling up. I have bills. I have kids. This money would change everything for us. But it feels wrong to profit from helping someone. Then don't think of it as profit. Think of it as restitution for what you lost. Your job, your dignity, your reputation. Though honestly, after what I've seen online, your reputation is better than ever. Jennifer laughed despite herself. The viral thing is overwhelming. I can imagine. Which brings me to my second reason for asking you here. Michael stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden. My father spent his entire life believing that businesses should do more than just make money. They should improve communities, help people, make the world better. That's why he started our foundation 15 years ago. The Thornton Foundation? Jennifer had heard of it. They funded homeless shelters, food banks, scholarship programs. Exactly. My father ran it himself until his dementia made that impossible. Since then, we've had an interim director, but it's not the same. We need someone who understands the Foundation's mission on a fundamental level. Someone who doesn't just talk about compassion, but actually lives it. Jennifer's heart started beating faster. What are you saying? Michael turned to face her. I'm offering you a job, Director of Community Outreach for the Thornton Foundation. You'd oversee our local programs, work with nonprofits, help us identify where our resources can do the most good. The salary is $90,000 a year plus benefits. Full health insurance, retirement plan, 3 weeks vacation. Jennifer couldn't breathe. $90,000? That was more than triple what she'd made at Morrison's. I don't have nonprofit experience, she managed to say. You have something better. You have heart. You have judgment. You understand what it means to help people at the ground level. We can teach you the paperwork and the procedures. We can't teach someone to care the way you do. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, though I'm hoping you'll say yes. Michael smiled. David has prepared all the employment documents. We'd like you to start as soon as possible. We have several projects that need immediate attention. Jennifer looked down at the check in her hands, then back at Michael. This was too much, too fast. Yesterday, she'd been sitting in her apartment, devastated and unemployed. Today, she was being offered a dream job and more money than she'd ever seen in her life. Can I ask you something? Jennifer said. Anything. Why me? I know you said all those nice things, but you could hire someone with experience, with connections, with a degree in nonprofit management. Why offer this to someone you just met? Michael sat back down, his expression serious. Because 2 days ago, you had a choice. You could follow the rules and protect yourself, or you could break the rules and help someone. You chose to help, even knowing what it might cost you. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. He extended his hand. So what? Do you say, Jennifer, will you join us? Jennifer thought about her kids, about the bills piling up, about the future she'd thought was lost forever. Then she thought about Robert Thornton, confused and freezing in that parking lot, and how she'd done the right thing without hesitation. She reached out and shook Michael's hand. Yes, I'll do it. Jennifer started her new job the following Monday, and it felt like stepping into a completely different world. The Thornton Foundation offices were located in a beautifully restored building downtown, with exposed brick walls and large windows that let in natural light. Her office was bigger than her living room, with a real wooden desk and comfortable chairs for meetings. But despite the fancy surroundings, Jennifer didn't let it go to her head. She remembered where she came from, and more importantly, she remembered why she was here. Her first week was a whirlwind of meetings, introductions, and learning about all the Foundation's current programs. They funded 3 homeless shelters, 2 food banks, a scholarship program for underprivileged kids, and several community health initiatives. It was impressive work, but as Jennifer dug deeper, she started to see problems. These programs are great, she told Michael during their weekly check-in meeting, but we're treating symptoms, not causes. We're feeding people who are hungry, but we're not addressing why they're hungry in the first place. Michael leaned back in his chair, intrigued. Go on. Take the job training program we fund at the community center. It's wonderful, but what happens when someone completes it, gets a job, and then loses it because they showed basic human compassion? Just like I did? You want to address corporate policies. I want to do more than that. I want to start a conversation about how businesses treat employees who help people, about creating safety nets for workers who do the right thing but face consequences. Michael was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. My father would have loved this idea. What do you need from me? Permission to make some noise. And maybe your PR team. What Jennifer had in mind was ambitious, maybe even a little crazy. But she'd already lost everything once for doing what was right. She wasn't afraid to take risks anymore. She reached out to Tom, her former assistant manager at Morrison's, and several other former colleagues. Together, they organized what they called the Compassion in Commerce Initiative. The goal was simple: Convince businesses to create policies that protected employees who helped people in emergency situations. Think of it as a Good Samaritan law for workers, Jennifer explained during a local news interview. If someone saves a life or helps a person in crisis, they shouldn't be fired for it. There should be protections in place. The interview aired on a Thursday evening, and by Friday morning it had been shared thousands of times online. Other workers came forward with their own stories. A nurse who'd been written up for staying late to comfort a dying patient's family. A teacher who'd been reprimanded for buying lunch for a hungry student. A security guard who'd been fired for letting a homeless woman sleep in a building lobby during a dangerous cold snap. The stories kept coming, and each one proved Jennifer's point. Corporate policies were often punishing the exact kind of behavior that made communities stronger. Morrison's Grocery, meanwhile, was taking a beating in the court of public opinion. Their sales had dropped nearly 30% in the Portland area. People were driving extra miles to shop at competitor stores. The company's social media pages were flooded with angry comments. 3 weeks after Jennifer started her new job, she received an unexpected email. It was from Richard Palmer, her former district manager. "Jennifer, I hope this email finds you well. I wanted to reach out personally to apologize for how everything happened. You deserved better. I deserve to be braver. I'm writing to let you know that Morrison's corporate office has reached out about a meeting. They want to discuss policy changes. They've specifically asked if you'd be willing to be part of the conversation. I understand if you want nothing to do with us, but I wanted to extend the invitation. You were right and we were wrong. We'd like a chance to make it better." Jennifer read the email 3 times. Part of her wanted to delete it and never look back. Morrison's had humiliated her, cost her security, and treated her like a criminal for being a good person. But another part of her, the part that had knelt beside Robert Thornton in that cold parking lot, knew that holding a grudge wouldn't help anyone. She forwarded the email to Michael. "What do you think?" His response came quickly. "I think this is what leadership looks like. Not everyone gets a chance to turn their pain into progress. You do. Take it." The meeting was scheduled for the following week at Morrison's corporate headquarters. Jennifer arrived in a conference room to find not just Richard, but the regional vice president, the head of HR, and several other executives she didn't recognize. "Ms. Collins, thank you for coming," the vice president, a woman named Patricia Green, began. "We owe you an apology. Multiple apologies, actually. What happened to you was wrong and it revealed serious flaws in our policies." "I appreciate that," Jennifer said carefully. "But apologies are just words. What matters is what you do next." Patricia nodded. "Agreed. That's why we've been working on a new policy framework. We'd like your input." They spent the next 2 hours discussing specifics. Morrison's wanted to create an emergency assistance fund that managers could access without corporate approval for situations involving customer or community welfare. They wanted to implement training programs about compassionate leadership. They wanted to establish protections for employees who helped people in crisis situations. "This is a good start," Jennifer said. "But I need you to go further. I want you to make this public. I want other companies to see what you're doing and feel pressure to do the same. I want Morrison's to be known for fixing its mistakes, not just for making them." Patricia looked at her fellow executives, then back at Jennifer. "We can do that. We'll issue a public statement about the policy changes and invite other retailers to adopt similar standards. We'll make this part of our corporate responsibility platform. And one more thing," Jennifer said. "I want Morrison's to donate to the Thornton Foundation. Not as a publicity stunt, but as a genuine partnership. We're launching a program to help workers who've been fired or disciplined for showing compassion. Your contribution would help us expand it." "How much are we talking about?" $500,000 over 2 years. There was silence in the room. Then Patricia extended her hand. "You have a deal." As Jennifer left the building, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real tangible hope that things could actually change. The Morrison's policy changes were announced the following month, and the response was overwhelming. 3 major retail chains reached out to Jennifer and the Thornton Foundation, asking for help implementing similar programs. A national business magazine wrote a feature article about the compassion revolution in corporate America. But the moment that meant the most to Jennifer came 6 months after that cold November night. Michael had asked her to come to his father's care facility, When she arrived, Robert Thornton was sitting in a comfortable chair by the window, looking more alert than she'd seen him that night in the parking lot. "Dad," Michael said gently. "This is Jennifer. She's the woman who helped you." Robert's eyes focused on her, and something sparked with recognition. His speech was slow but clear. "The angel." In the parking lot, Jennifer felt tears welling up. Not an angel, just someone who was there when you needed help. "No," Robert insisted, reaching for her hand. His grip was weak but warm. "Angel, Michael told me. You lost everything. For me, I didn't lose everything," Jennifer said softly. "I found something better." Robert smiled, and in that moment, Jennifer saw the man he must have been before the dementia, the philanthropist who'd built an empire on the belief that businesses should help people. "My father wanted to give you something," Michael said, handing Jennifer an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter in shaky handwriting. It was short, just a few lines, but it said everything. "Dear Jennifer, thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for helping when it cost you everything. The world needs more people like you. Please keep doing what you do. Love, Robert." Jennifer carefully folded the letter and put it in her purse. She'd frame it later, hang it in her office as a reminder of why she did this work. That evening, she picked up her kids from after-school care, and they stopped for pizza on the way home, something they could actually afford now without stress. As she listened to them talk about their day, arguing about toppings and laughing at each other's jokes, Jennifer realized something important. That night in the parking lot, when she'd made the choice to help Robert Thornton, she'd thought she was risking everything, and she had been. But what she hadn't known was that sometimes losing everything is exactly what you need to find out what really matters. She'd lost a job that undervalued her. She'd found a career that fulfilled her. She'd lost security in what was comfortable. She'd found confidence in doing what was right. She'd lost the illusion that playing by the rules always led to fairness. She'd found the power to change those rules. Most importantly, she'd learned that compassion wasn't a weakness or a luxury. It was a strength, one that could transform not just individual lives, but entire systems. As they drove home through the Portland streets, past the Morrisons' grocery where her old life had ended, Jennifer smiled. She didn't regret a single decision she'd made that cold November night, because in the end, the choice to help someone, to see their humanity and respond to it, wasn't really a choice at all. It was simply the right thing to do. And no policy, no job, no consequence could ever make that wrong. Sometimes, Jennifer thought, the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that ever happened. You just have to be brave enough to keep doing what's right, even when it costs you everything. The next day would bring new challenges, new programs to launch, new policies to advocate for. But tonight, Jennifer was just grateful. Grateful for second chances, for people who believed in compassion, and for that cold November evening that had changed absolutely everything. 1 year later, Jennifer stood on a small stage in the downtown convention center, looking out at an audience of over 500 business leaders, nonprofit directors, and community activists. The annual Compassion in Commerce Summit had grown far beyond anything she'd imagined when she'd first pitched the idea to Michael. A year ago, "I was fired for buying a warm jacket for a dying man," she began, her voice steady and clear. "Today I'm standing here because that firing sparked a conversation that was long overdue, not just about corporate policy, but about what kind of society we want to be." She clicked to the next slide, showing statistics that still amazed her. In the past 12 months, over 200 companies across the country have adopted compassionate employee protection policies. That means thousands of workers can now help people in crisis without fear of losing their jobs. Thousands of people in need are getting help because someone isn't afraid to break a rule to save a life. The audience applauded, but Jennifer raised her hand. "But we're not done. Not even close. Because changing policy on paper is easy. Changing culture is hard." She told them about Carlos, a warehouse worker in Seattle who'd used company time to drive a coworker having a heart attack to the hospital. Even with the new policies, his supervisor had still tried to write him up. "The rules changed, but the mindset hadn't," Jennifer explained. "That's what we're here to work on." After her speech, people lined up to talk with her. A hospital administrator wanted advice on implementing similar protections for nurses. A retail CEO wanted to partner with the foundation. A young woman, probably in her early 20s, waited patiently until everyone else had gone. "Hi, she said nervously. "I just wanted to say thank you. My mom is a teacher, and last month she spent her own money to buy winter coats for 3 kids in her class who didn't have any. Her principal found out and was going to reprimand her, but then he saw your story online. He ended up creating a fund for teachers to help students instead. Those kids have warm coats now because you were brave enough to help someone." Jennifer felt her throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you for telling me that. Stories like that are why I keep doing this work." That evening, Michael hosted a small dinner at his home for the Foundation's board members and key staff. Robert was there too, having a good day, lucid and smiling. He'd been following Jennifer's work closely as much as his condition allowed. "You know what I think?" Robert said during dessert, his words slow but purposeful. "I think that night in the parking lot you didn't just save my life. You saved something bigger. You reminded people that caring about each other matters more than any rule." "Your father's right," Michael added. "The Foundation has received more donations this year than in any previous year. People want to support this message. They're hungry for it." Jennifer looked around the table at the faces of people who'd become like family to her. David Chen, who'd helped her navigate the legal complexities of the new policies. Patricia Green from Morrison's, who'd become an unexpected ally and friend. Tom, her former assistant manager, who now worked as the Foundation's community liaison. Her kids were at home with a babysitter, probably staying up past their bedtime but happy and secure in ways they hadn't been before. "I've been thinking about something," Jennifer said. "I want to start a scholarship program for young people who want to work in nonprofits or social justice fields. Not just any scholarship, though. I want it specifically for people who've faced consequences for doing the right thing. People who've been expelled for standing up to bullies or fired from part-time jobs for helping someone, or punished for showing compassion." "The Second Chance Scholarship," Michael said immediately. "I love it. Let's do it." As Jennifer drove home that night, she passed the Morrison's grocery where everything had changed. The store was still there, still open, but it was different now. There was a plaque by the entrance installed by corporate headquarters that read, "In honor of those who choose compassion over compliance." She smiled at that. It wasn't about her, not really. It was about every person who'd ever faced an impossible choice between following rules and following their conscience. It was about creating a world where that choice didn't have to be impossible anymore. Her phone buzzed with a text from her daughter. "Mom, when are you coming home?" "We made you a surprise." Jennifer typed back, 5 minutes away. "Can't wait to see it." As she pulled into her apartment complex, Jennifer realized she hadn't thought of this as the wrong side of town in months. It was just home. And home felt pretty perfect right now. She'd helped a stranger and got fired. The next day had changed everything. But the real change, the lasting change, wasn't about what happened to her. It was about what happened because of her. And that story was still being written, one act of compassion at a time.